Hey Oddings, welcome to Stories with Sapphire. I'm your Ate Sapphire. Welcome to a special bonus episode of Stories with Sapphire for Halloween, which is just around the corner. It's going to be a little looser, more casual than regular episodes. I apologize for the fan in the background, but it does get very hot here in the sound booth, so I do need it running. These are stories that I pulled that were maybe too short for a podcast, but I wanted to share them with you anyways. I hope you enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And now, it's story time. This story comes from Ellie. Hey Sapphire, I've been a listener of yours for a few years now. I used to love the Something Scary podcast, but it's not the same without you. I just recently found your new podcast and I have binged the entire thing within a few days. Oh. I am loving learning about your culture and experiences. Keep up the amazing work. A bit of background on me. I am from tiny old London in the UK. I have always believed there is something greater than us, but I've never had a profound paranormal experience. Doesn't mean I wouldn't want to have one just to see what it's all about. I found a real passion for yoga in lockdown and felt a real spiritual awakening or curiosity. I've always been curious about the paranormal and supernatural, but now I am trying to discover more about my own spirituality, which has really peaked during the last few months of intense lockdown here. You did an episode which was all about dreams and what they might mean, which honestly spoke volumes to me. I have always had intense, crazy dreams, some which are probably my overactive imagination, and some just creep me out. The one amazing dream experience that I had was a few years ago now. Some info before I get into it. I was lucky enough to grow up with my great nan. She passed when I was 21. But when she did pass, it hit me hard. I had a lot of mental issues at the time and had just made a heartbreaking decision. It was a horrible time in my life, actually the worst year, I would say. The last conversation I had with her was me explaining I had been sexually assaulted, which really weighed on my mind. So anyway, I moved on from this hard time, move on to 2019. February, to be exact. I know because I texted my mom after this happened. Haha. I had a dream that I went to visit my great nan in her childhood home. She lived in the same house her whole life. It's weird because that house is a council property, so here in the UK, after you pass, they give this to another family who needs it. So I haven't even been to the house since she passed. I knocked on her front door and she came and opened it. So bear in mind, before she died, she was quite frail and had a walking frame and always wore glasses. She opened the door, and there she was. No walking frame and no glasses. Also forgot to mention I had brought all of the great-grandkids, at least 13 of us, with me in a line to see her. They were all lining up behind me. So the first thing I say as she opens the door is, "Nanny, where are your glasses?" And she said, "Darling, I don't need them now." Then I followed her into her tiny front room where she sat in her usual armchair. For some reason, it was just me at this point. Then I gave her a cuddle, and she kissed me as she always did. Then I said, "I've brought all the kids to see you." And then I woke up as all the grandkids came in. I can't explain this feeling. It was pure happiness in that moment. I felt like she was telling me in my dream that she was in better health wherever she is now, actually better than she has been for a long time, and although she didn't say anything else, that she was happy. I've never dreamt of her since, and I haven't had such a beautiful experience in a dream ever again. I feel like this was a message from her. What are your thoughts on this? I'd love to hear what you think of my great nanny visiting me from the other side through my dream. I've only ever told this to my family and just chalked it up to a weird dream, but I'm convinced it was a message that I should stop mourning her and instead treasure the memories she gave me. I love the show and thanks for your time. Love, Ellie. Ellie, that is such a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing it with me and now everyone here watching. It does remind me of the story that I shared in that episode. I believe it's season 1, episode 3, called Before I Wake. I interviewed my cousin and her mom, so my aunt. And my cousin had, if you haven't listened to the episode, my cousin had this really vivid dream of visiting our great grandma, our great Lola. And this was during a really stressful time in her life. And so in the dream, it was very comforting and warm. And she was in our grandma's house, and there was our great Lola and then our great Lolo. And she was giving my cousin soup and asking her questions about how she was. And my cousin remembers waking up and feeling very happy, almost as if all of the stress sort of left her. Here's the thing, like, even if it is simply just a random dream, if it is just your brain giving you these images because it knows it will make you feel better, isn't that kind of cool in itself? Like, I don't know. I think for people to look at that, something that is so helpful and transformative, to look at that and think, oh, well, it was just your brain. It was just random. But like, it changed you, you know? So it doesn't matter. And that's the way I see it. It doesn't matter if it was paranormal or just a dream. What matters is how it affected you. And it sounds like it affected you in a very positive way. So that's all that matters, in my opinion. Thanks again for sharing that. And I need to plug in my laptop. This next story comes from Cubero Barantes. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. Hi there, Sapphire. First of all, I'd like to say I absolutely love your podcast. Thank you. Your podcast really feeds my paranormal interest. Listening to the way you talk, it has inspired me to connect more to the spiritual side of my life and also to express this story with you. In your podcast, you talk a lot about reconnecting with our ancestors. So here I go, telling you about mine. My family from my mom's side is superstitious. They have had encounters with ghosts and spirits, and they can even reconnect with their ancestors in some way. They once lived in a haunted house. Once, a spirit choked my youngest uncle in their sleep. They had to move out because it was getting too dangerous. I live with my sister, mom, and dad. We have all seen spirits roaming around our house except my dad. I once saw what I like to call an angel with my babysitter. We both saw it crouched on the floor, its back facing us. I saw it again when I was alone. It had short ginger hair and a long white dress with huge wings. Even though we're totally sure we saw that creature, now I'm not that convinced it was an angel. You know how some spirits disguise themselves with friendly costumes to get close to us, and even more with little innocent children. My sister saw things too. We even saw a woman sitting at our table while trying to get downstairs. The woman that helps around the house, the same woman whom I saw the angel with, has seen a lot of ghosts in our house, and sometimes she could have sworn that it was me and my sister. My grandmother came and blessed the house. Since then, no one has seen any more spirits around. That's a reason why I doubt the creature I saw was an angel. If it really was an angel, why did it go away after the blessing? Shouldn't the blessing have strengthened its bond to our house? I think it's mainly because of how I felt when I saw it. I felt drawn to it, but not in a good way. I felt like it was trying to bewitch me into getting closer. I was scared to death, but couldn't stop staring at those shiny wings. I'm glad I ran away when I could. I think that knowing the history that my family has can help understand the next thing. This is the main thing I wanted to tell you. Maybe you have an explanation. When someone is going to die, we sense the smell of lilies. I know it may sound crazy, but more than one time, the smell of lilies comes, and days or hours later, we get the news that someone in our family died. I don't think it happens with people that aren't our family, and it normally is with my mom's family. I get that smell more than my sister, and it sometimes just warns us, but mostly it's because someone died. A priest once told my mom that he knew that one or more of her ancestors were witches and that she needed to redeem that sin because God punishes all generations. I'm not Catholic, and I do believe in witchcraft energies and spiritualism. Maybe that smell of lilies is our witch ancestors trying to tell us that one of us died. I'd love to hear your point of view on this. Again, I'd really like to thank you for entertaining me and inspiring me to reach out for a more spiritual life. I really, really love your podcast. I hope you get far with it. I'll be there listening and supporting you. Oh, well, thank you so much. So it is definitely not uncommon to smell the scent of flowers, any kind of flowers. One that is very commonly reported is the scent of roses. Sometimes people say it smells like a funeral home. Roses tend to be the type of flowers that are in funeral homes. Sometimes the scent can happen before somebody dies or right after. The stories that I usually hear, people smell the flowers after. We can experience paranormal activity through all of our senses, and smell is, I believe, the one that invokes our memory the strongest. And so that's why a lot of people report smelling things like someone's cigarette or someone's perfume after they die, because it is the thing most tied to our memory. Anyways, I don't know if I answered that at all, but thank you for submitting your story. This story comes from Prabal B. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Hello, I am an active listener of your podcast, and I have got a legend/story to share. I am from Assam, India, and the story I want to share with you is a legend from our locality. I am Hindu, and we follow cremation after death. And in our Hindu culture, the son has to burn the body of his father. Women don't generally participate in these funerals in most of the cultures. So basically, it's all men. The ritual is quite long, and I can explain it to you bit by bit, but there's a part of the ritual where we have to drop 4 coins around the 4 corners of the cremation. Those 4 coins are for the soul of the deceased to carry during his travel to the Swarg Narak, or heaven and hell. Now here's how the legend works. After the cremation, around midnight, if we can somehow pick all those 4 coins, the person with these coins will have some powers. For example, they will never lose a case in the court, their health will never deteriorate, they will not suffer a loss in their business. But there's a catch while picking up the coins. First, the one who picks up these coins should never look back while doing this process. For example, if I picked up the coins, I should leave the cremation ground without looking back, but the spirits try to lure you to look back. Second, the one who is picking up these coins should be alone. Third, the one who picked up these coins should keep the coins only to themselves. Fourth, the whole process should be done at night. If anyone fails in doing any of these steps, the person will instantly die, and his whole family will be cursed. So there's one incident my uncle told me about. It was around 2005. Once, after the death of an elderly village man, a fellow village man decided to pick up these coins. He went to the cremation ground at midnight and started picking them up. In the morning, the cremation groundskeeper found his dead body. The post-mortem reports showed that the cause of death was cardiac arrest. The cops found out that he was holding those coins during his time of death. After this incident, his wife gave birth to a baby girl, but the girl died after some time. His wife lost all her money due to some misfortunes. She started doing household work, but she was sick all the time, so she wasn't fit to work as a maid. She died in the winter of 2008. Wow. Thank you, Prabal, for sending that in. That is really sad, but also incredibly interesting. I've never heard of this practice, but I do love legends that involve following a set of rules. And yeah, I'm curious to know if anyone else in India has heard of this or has tried this before. And I'm curious to know if there's any news articles or news coverage of when this happened? Or is that example part of the legend? Like, there's no like physical evidence of that. 2005 was not that long ago, so yeah, if there is any links you can send us, send them in. Thanks, Prabal. And this is our very last story, and this comes from Zain. This is just a fictional story that I really hope you cover on your channel. One stormy Halloween night in the middle of nowhere, a man named Ted got into a horrible car accident. This was before cell phones. He was thinking, how was he supposed to get home when he saw some light in the distance? When he got closer, he saw a house. Maybe he could get some help. He got closer and closer to the house until he reached the front door. He rang the bell, but nobody answered. Then, as he was about to knock on the door, it creaked open. He called out, but no one answered. He cautiously stepped inside. There was no one there to greet him. He continued to call out, all the while walking through the hallway, looking at the photos on the wall. He saw pictures of a happy, elderly couple. He figured they were the homeowners. He picked up one of the frames on the table. Then suddenly, lightning struck, and he dropped it with a crash. He looked out the window and saw it had begun to pour even harder than before. As Ted kneeled to pick up the picture, he saw a pair of feet in front of him. Shocked and embarrassed, he quickly stood up and saw that it was the woman in the photo. He apologized for being in her home and told her what happened to him and asked if he could use her phone to call a tow truck. She told him the phone was dead due to the storm, but she told him he was welcome to stay for the night or until the lines came back or the storm cleared up. He thanked her for her kindness. He forgot he was holding the cracked picture frame in his hands and apologized for dropping it. She said not to worry. He asked if the man also lived with her, and she said, "Yes, that's my husband, but he passed 2 years ago." Ted offered his condolences. The woman told him to sit while she brought him some hot tea. She disappeared into the kitchen, and Ted continued to look around the house at all the photos and interesting decor. He waited and waited. It seems like a long time had passed and she hadn't returned. So he went to the kitchen to check on her. But she wasn't there. He called out for her, but no reply. He looked around the other rooms. He went up the stairs, but was stopped by an elderly man, asking him what he was doing in his house. It was the man from the photo. But how could it be? The woman said he died 2 years ago. The old man shouted, "Why are you in my house?" Ted frantically tried to explain that he got in an accident and came here to get some help and that his wife had said it was okay. The old man interrupted him. "My wife? She hasn't lived here since she died 5 years ago." Ted was even more confused. As he was trying to make sense of what was going on, he saw the wife walking up the stairs. He kept telling the old man that his wife was right there going up the stairs, to which the old man insisted that he didn't see anybody. As the woman started to approach the old man, she opened her mouth and they burst out in laughter. Ted had no idea what was going on. That's when the old man and the woman told him that it was just a prank. They lived here alone, and because they're so isolated, they often get bored. So that night, they brought out a Ouija board to try and summon a spirit, thinking it would be quite adventurous. But it was a bust, and nothing happened. But then they saw Ted coming towards the house, so they decided to pull a little prank on him. That's when Ted began laughing. The elderly couple laughed along with him, but realized Ted was laughing a little too hard. "Okay, it's not that funny," the old man confessed. But Ted looked at them and said, "No, I'm laughing at you. Your session wasn't a bust." He pointed out the window towards his car. Even in the pouring rain, the couple could clearly see the lifeless body of Ted in the driver's seat. Ooh, I love this story. I love how there's multiple whammies, there hasn't been a woman here in 40 years moments. Thank you, Zain, for submitting this. I don't know if this is an original or if this is your interpretation of an urban legend, because it does sound vaguely familiar. I feel like I may have heard something very similar, or maybe it's just a really well-written story that it sounds very classic. So thank you so much, Zain, for sending that in. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining me and for submitting all of your stories. If you would like to submit a story to either the podcast or the YouTube series, you can send it to storieswithsapphire@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and have a happy Halloween. Until we meet again,